Okay, messing with the front springs this morning. I think I fixed my floppy inverting spring problem. I moved the pivot point from here to here. I just welded another piece of pipe on, and it takes some of the parallelism out of this structure, so now there's more of a acute angle. I believe that's the right term. So it can't get where it can flip over. So that was the easy solution. Look at that weld, huh? Not bad. And I cut a couple pieces of plate, and I'm going to make the holder for this spring, which will be clamped, and then this will be welded to the frame of the cart. So I'm going to drill some holes, make sure they're in the right spot to try to keep it from being loose, and start trying to figure out how to attach this to the rest of the cart. So I cut this plate and this plate, the one on the bottom, and I marked the holes. I welded two plates together and drilled the four holes so they would line up, and then I clamped them to this little leaf spring and knocked it around till it was in the middle as much as I could figure it, and drilled a hole all the way through the spring. So this is anchored securely, and this is a heavy piece of metal. I think it's at least a 1/4 inch thick. So somehow or another I need to come from here down to the frame, and the frame width is going to be determined by how far I want to turn the wheels, or how far I want the wheels to be able to turn. And that is a good question. So let's say I want to turn this sharp so the outside of the frame can't be past this. And that is like 3 1/8 inches. So I'm going to take 3 1/8 inches off of each end, and that's how wide the frame's going to be coming back. So then I can design this transition from up here to down at the frame. Okay, moving forward on the frame, this is the front of the frame itself, and the width is determined by giving the wheels enough room to turn. This needs to be part of the frame. This part moves. This is the front axle. It'll move around. So I need to make some steel to connect these two. It needs to be pretty strong because it'll take all the bounce. I thought I solved my steering problem, or my suspension problem. I added another pipe right here. So I took the bolt out of this hole and moved it up. And that made this linkage more like a 90-degree angle to the spring. And it does work. Like, this is perfect right here. This allows the the frame to twist if this wheel wants to go up on a curve or something. But if something goes crazy, you can still do this. And I'm pretty sure that would break any kind of steering linkage I'm going to set up. So I don't want it to do that. The little springs I had welded in there, they work pretty good. But as it rocks back and forth, it goes side to side, and it was going to break them. There's no way they were going to stay on there. So right now I'm kind of grasping at straws. But I'm going to put 2 of these big springs these springs under here. These are pretty stout, so that when it tries to go side to side, it'll put resistance on that. And I think it'll put enough resistance so if the front end goes airborne and it wants to do that, I think it'll pick up the front axle. I don't think it'll let it do that. Anyway, that's my hope. I'm going to tack this together and see how this works. Well, that problem solved itself. I'll have 2 pipes coming from the main frame to hold the front bumper on, and they go under the axle, so they're going to limit the travel. I had to just put a rubber bumper right there, but typically it won't be free to bang like that. It keeps it from inverting, and it lets it. So we're done. I mean, I don't think that's a problem anymore. So now that I got the axle located in reference to the frame, I'll go ahead and put the control arms on. So I cut them out of some pretty hefty steel and put a bend in them to make the I don't know, the tie rods, I think that's the word for it, and make them fit with the least interference with the frame. I spent some time getting ready to weld the steering arms onto the spindles. One thing, I have the front spring under tension. It's picked up by this board and that board, so it's level. And then the front spindles are parallel because I got this board and this spacer, and it's clamped on both ends. And then the little steering arms, I call them, here, I got them level because they're clamped to this little board, and they're both pointing toward the center of the rear axle, which makes the Ackerman steering geometry correct. So I'm going to put a little tack on them and take all this junk off and slip the wheels back on and make sure they turn fully both ways. And if it's all good, I'll take it apart and go weld it out on the bench. This needs to be a good 100% weld. Okay, so with the tire on, the tire hits the frame before the steering linkage gets in the bind, so we're good. I'm going to take them both off and bring them to the bench and weld them out. So I don't have a lathe, so I wasn't able to turn shafts and pins to proper sizes or turn down bronze bushings to make this front end not so rattly. So as a result, the front end was very rattly. But I do have a hammer. I have lots of hammers, so I beat some copper to fit around the pins and fit inside the holders, and it made an incredible difference. I know this is probably short-lived, but after all, this is a go-kart. It probably won't see that many hours, and I don't think it'll wear out anytime soon. So I did the steering pivot and the pivots by the springs, and it just tightened up the front end. Amazing. It's a big difference, night and day. We're repurposing, I think that's the current term, the bearing housing out of these two little crappy wheels. I think these were actually meant to be mounted on a trailer to guide a boat up on a boat trailer. But they were bent and discarded, and they're going to have a new life. Things were just rolling along too good. I think something had to go wrong. I put the stop up here. I just put a flat plate and welded a little plate and put an adjustable bolt, and it keeps that wheel from hitting the frame when you turn that way. Keeps this wheel from hitting the frame when you turn this way. It was easy, it was simple, everything's lovely, but it's not always lovely. So right now, I've got the front spring loaded a little bit. I got it jacked up like maybe if the cart was empty. I don't have it jacked up that high. But when you allow it to move, then you get into trouble. Because then the stop doesn't work. So now the tire hits because the geometry changes. Okay, my original audio went bad about right here, but basically the front axle moves so much and the geometry changes, and it really messes with the steering system. The movement of the front axle changes the turn radius, so I had the stops adjusted where the tires wouldn't hit, and now they do hit. And it also changes the steering, and I believe it's called bump steer. So if you were going along and you hit a pothole, you'd have to correct the steering because the steering linkage would be in a different geometry. So that's not a good thing if you're going along and you have to keep fighting with the steering wheel to go in a straight line. So I've got these rubber engine mounts from a job a couple of years ago. I'm going to cut them in half and mount them underneath the front axle on top of those square tubes that are out there to hold up the front bumper. And I'm just going to basically limit the amount of travel the front axle has. Most go-karts don't have any front axle movement at all. Most of them are welded rigid. This is something just, I wanted this. So I'm just going to have to limit it a little bit to get rid of this bump steer issue. So I cut the engine support in half and I drilled and tapped a hole. And I don't know if this is going to solve the problem, but I was wanting to do this anyway, so it wouldn't have a metal to metal clank when it bottoms out. Okay, for like the 5th time, I think I solved my problem again. The rubber bumpers reduce the amount of motion, and by tightening up the set screws here, even in the worst case scenario, I can keep the tire from running. So I think we're okay. Keep on going. I'm going to cut these off. I'm going to cut these square tubes off and transition to round because I just think it'll look better, a round pipe holding the bumper. No other reason than that. It's just for aesthetics. The buggy is now at my home workshop where my woodworking stuff is, and I'm mocking up a body, which is not as simple as I thought it would be, but we're coming along. Took me 3 times to get the seat right, and I'm not sure that this is right yet, but I have enough built to realize that I don't like this steering setup. So it'll be back to the foundry where the welding equipment is, and we will cut this loose and renovate it again. So that'll be another video. Enough yammering on for this time. Thanks for watching.